Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to COS Indiana Live. It's good to be with you. We've been away for a couple weeks. I understand that. And so it's good to be back with you again. Once again, the purpose of our broadcast is to reach out to Hoosiers in the state of Indiana that perhaps want to further their knowledge of Convention of States here in Indiana. And of course, we're open to anyone beyond the state that may be interested in Indiana. So let me bring that up. And again, I want to welcome everyone to the broadcast. And let me move that out and bring up the next item that I want to use. But once again, my name is Dale Parrish. I am the state director for Convention of States here in Indiana. And once again, to just remind you of how we conduct our broadcast here. We're doing this every Monday night, and we start at 7 o'clock. Our broadcast is broken down into two segments. The first segment will be just a general overview of the basics of Convention of States. These are the basic tenets that we all in the movement that we all learn and go by. So that'll be the first segment. Then the second segment will be either a guest, which we have tonight, or we may be doing a topic. And I'll mention that later on, because our next couple broadcasts right now, I have planned to discuss some particular topics. And I'll mention that. I'll get a little bit more in detail on that at the end of the broadcast tonight. But for our second segment tonight, we have a gentleman by the name of Chris Miller. And Chris is another one of our SIAs. We're big on acronyms in Convention of States, Systems Information Analyst. And so we'll be talking with Chris in our second segment this evening. So let's get going with our PowerPoint presentation that I wanted to do this evening. And let me get this into the full screen mode. I'm told this is the best mode for those of you that may be on an iPhone of some type and viewing our presentation this evening. So let's get started then on our basics. I want to first identify for you some resources that we have available to us here in the state of Indiana. And the first resource is our website, and that is conventionofstates.com. Now, that is a national website. You'll hear us make reference to that website frequently. It has a wealth of information on it, and any new person coming into our movement and wants to become a supporter of Convention of States, this is the first place that you have to go to, conventionofstates.com. You sign the petition and open an account with us. Now, embedded in that national website is our state website page, conventionofstates.com/Indiana. That is a website, obviously, with the focus being on the state of Indiana. Now, in the area of social media, we're on a number of different platforms. We're on Facebook, of course. And as a matter of fact, this broadcast this evening is coming to you through our state Facebook page, Convention of States, Indiana. So be sure and go on our state website or our state Facebook page. Once again, a wealth of information is available to you. as well as recordings of this broadcast. We also have a YouTube channel, COS Indiana. And now the YouTube channel, we've been working very diligently to try and build this YouTube channel up because we want it to be an educational resource for people in our movement, supporters, volunteers, leaders. We have on that YouTube channel, we have PowerPoint presentations, very similar to what you're seeing this evening. We have recordings of these broadcasts are also on the YouTube channel. And we also have a podcast that one of our other leaders in the movement, Paul Phillips, who is our legislative liaison and also a co-state director, he generates this podcast called Free to Be Free. And they're very, very interesting. He addresses various topics. So we have all those there centrally located on our YouTube channel. So I ask you, please go to that channel and be sure to subscribe. That's important. So be sure to subscribe so you are made aware of anything that we add to the channel in the future. Also, we're on Twitter, hashtag COS Indiana. And we also are on Instagram. So we're trying our best to reach through all the various social media platforms. Okay, let's get going here. I want to share with you our vision statement for the state of Indiana. And that is here in Indiana, our vision is to build a Hoosier grassroots community of citizens and legislators dedicated to the constitutional concept of self-governance. Now, you'll hear us talk a lot about that, self-governance, but that is what we're trying to do. Everything that we do in the state of Indiana is ultimately oriented to achieving this vision here in the state of Indiana. So we're trying to create this community, and it's made of citizens and legislators. All right, let's look at just a few numbers before we get started here. In 2018, we achieved the level of 30,000 supporters here in the state of Indiana. We've had tremendous growth here in this state in the last couple years, growing at about a rate of 40%. So given that growth rate, we hope will continue, and we're striving and trying to make it continue. We've set a goal for 2019 of 40,000. So hopefully at the end of this year, I can report that we've achieved that goal and perhaps even surpassed it. Of the supporters that we have, about 2,500 are volunteers. These are individuals that have indicated that they would be willing to help out if needed. So they've checked that box on their petition saying that they would like to volunteer. We have about 32 people in leadership positions, always looking for additional people to take on leadership positions. Here's this website again. If you're interested at all in perhaps looking into a leadership position, go to our website, conventionofstates.com, click on the menu selection, Take Action, scroll down and look at the various volunteer positions that we have. If one is of interest to you, open it up, read more about it, and make application. Now, you're not obligated in any way if you make the application. What that does is your name then comes up on a report that we see, and one of us then will be in contact with you to further discuss what you might be interested in. So once again, if you have any interest in perhaps getting involved in a leadership position, go to the website, conventionofstates.com, click on Take Action, and go down and look at the different positions. We would love to have your participation. All right, let's get into then the basics. Convention of States is made up of three tenets, three aspects, and that is the problem, the solution, and the plan. The problem, very briefly, is we feel the federal government's out of control. They lack the will and the courage to address basic structural issues that we feel need to be addressed. We're not blaming any one particular party as being responsible for this. This has been going on for decades. It's just simply that our federal government, our officials and our federal government lack the will and the courage to address these basic structural issues. Now, those issues we refer to as abuses, we feel that the federal government has created. And the first one has to do with our debt. As you know, now we're not going to go into detail on these, but because I'm sure you're aware of most of these. Really, our federal debt is now just surpassed $22 trillion, and very little is being done. Actually, nothing's being done to address that. And we think that is one of the major abuses of the federal government. A second abuse is in the area of regulatory. We consider this the regulatory crisis, the administrative state, which is considered nowadays to be the fourth branch of government. Yes, we know the current administration is doing some things to address the regulations, but much more needs to be done, and especially in the area of controlling the individuals that create these various regulations. And the last abuse is in the area of state sovereignty. We think this is where the career politician plays a big role with power. When our country was founded, the concept of dual federalism was in place, where the federal government and the states would share power. Well, that's tilted all in the favor of the federal government. So we think to address this particular abuse, we believe that we need to look at term limits. All right. The solution, and this is very key for us. The solution, we believe, is in Article 5 of our Constitution. Article 5 describes the two methods that are available to us to amend the Constitution. And we're going to look briefly at each method, but it's the second method is what we're all about. But let's take a look at each one of those. Okay. The first method is the one that we're used to seeing, we're used to hearing about, and that's where Congress, 2/3 of Congress, proposes an amendment or amendments, and then those proposals then go to the state legislatures for ratification, requiring 3/4 of the state legislatures, or 38 states, to ratify any amendment or amendments. Once ratified, then they become amendments to the Constitution. Well, there is a second method, and we're not making this up. This is right in Article 5 of the Constitution. And the second method is where 2/3 of the state legislatures can apply to call for a convention of states for the purpose of amending the Constitution. And then at this convention, any proposed amendments then would have to go through the same ratification process as in Method 1, requiring 3/4 or 38 state legislatures to ratify. Any that are ratified automatically become amendments to the Constitution. This is what we're all about. This is what we want to see. We want a convention of states to propose amendments to the Constitution that will address the abuses of the federal government that we see. Well, okay, what's our plan to bring this about? Well, our plan has two parts to it. The first part is the application strategy. In order to call this convention, we need 34 states to make application and use the same application. That's called aggregation. So the same application has to be used. We have in Convention of States, we have designed this application that we want 34 states, at least 34, to use in making their application. And that in that application, in the subject matter of the application, we will address fiscal restraints, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and term limits. Those are the three areas in the subject matter of that application. Now, the other part of our plan is mobilizing the grassroots. Grassroots being you, me, our legislators. Very important part of our movement, the grassroots, because it all starts here at the grassroots, mobilizing citizens and legislators to get this done. Convention of States is now in all 50 states, as I mentioned earlier. In Indiana, we're at 30,000 supporters. Nationally, we're at 3.8 million supporters. So we're moving, our momentum is growing. We're now at, we just brought on 2 more states. We're now at 14 states, striving to get to that 34 mark. Yes, Indiana is one of those 14 states. We were the 6th state to make applications. So if you're interested at all in joining us, which I hope you are, we would love to help you have your participation in reaching our goal of having this convention of states. All right, I'm going to now get rid of my PowerPoint, and I'm going to bring on our guest for this evening. Again, Chris Miller, and he's there. You are. Hi, Chris.
Hey, thanks, Dale, very much for having me on. Hi, everybody that's viewing.
All right.
Excuse me.
Well, Chris, first of all, I like to have every guest, the first thing that I ask them to do is to tell their Convention of States story, and not your life story. We don't have time for your life.
We don't have time for that. or the patience.
I'm sure it'll be interesting, but tell us your Convention of States story, Chris.
Well, first off, I think back, and I was really no slacker in school, but I didn't really know about Article 5 until I started hearing, like little whispers of it, and probably sometime around 2012 in that area. And it's like, okay, somebody's talking about, well, you hear stuff all the time. So anyway, I started doing more and more reading, and it's like, you know what? I look at Washington, and it's gone for the graphic that you showed about the regulations. It went from find a need and fill it in business to send lobbyists to Washington, legislate a need, and mandate it.
Right.
And so I started looking at just the way things operate, and they're not going to change themselves. It's just, I think it's in the culture. And so, like many others, I guess 3.8 million people, I signed up on the petition in 2016 as a supporter initially, and then as I saw things, kind of move towards more and more people, getting interested and supporting, I started getting some emails says, hey, we need some help here and there if you're interested. And so I finally, I don't know exactly when that was. It's been about 1.5 years ago. I went ahead and took them up on that. And one of the things I can do is was kind of technology wise as a software developer. So I contacted Dale and company and signed up to be an SIA.
Okay. All right. Well, good. And we're certainly glad to have you on board. And I think as we talk about all the things you do, we're going to find out that you do more than just technology things. So tell us what in fact. Well, you're assistant information analyst. So I know, and you had to go through some training on that, right? Some training with National. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the training changes as the technology changes, and that's one of the nice things about Convention of States structure, is that they stay on top of that, and that knowledge kind of moves outward, to encompass all the things that are new and different, changes to the website and things like that. So. My role as a SIA or information analyst is to provide some support for leaders, and so my training was teaching me basically how to be a leader at first, but then how to help others that are in those roles, especially with the technology that we use, so that people don't get frustrated and everything. And so that's how my training started. There is a national I guess series of files and videos and so on, and attachments, even tracking documents to show where you are in your training, that's available to everybody that's going through it. And so I went through that.
And I think we ought to maybe point out here that one thing about Convention of States, we do utilize technology quite a bit, I think, to a large extent.
Yeah.
Certainly video conferencing, webinars, messaging services. We utilize technology quite a bit, and I think what one of the things that I like for people to know is that we understand people are at different technology levels, different skill levels, and that we will work with you, and that's we will support you and work with you to get you through these the various technology levels that we have. So I want everyone to really understand that. Okay, Chris,
That's true.
Let's go ahead and get us into tell us all the things that you're involved in now and what you're doing.
Well, again, my primary role is a state information analyst. We basically are there to support volunteers and leaders across the state. The SIAs are available via different communication methods: text, phone, email, and a tool called Slack, to answer volunteers' questions, and also to provide any solutions to problems or issues that they may encounter when they're trying to do their support the Convention of States. I have a supplemental role as a trainer, and I'm just one of several trainers that handle different aspects of the COS volunteer and leadership path. Each trainer hosts a session that's done generally one-on-one. Sometimes it's one-on-two, but it's done live, and they're called modules, and we do those for each prospective district captain, who in turn handle people in their districts, legislative wise. Each one of the modules focuses on the part of the operation for the prospective district captains. And then, so I'm currently training prospective district captains in module 2, which is the technology module. So what that does is it teaches the users how to communicate and organize, not only with each other, but with the Convention of States volunteers and supporters themselves. we introduced communication software. Some of it's free and open source and available for everybody. One of those is a free conference call, which is kind of similar to GoToMeeting, where you can, do video chats and things like this and train people and just talk to them. And that's free. And then Slack, which is kind of similar to Microsoft Teams. It's a team organization software. Then on top of that, we also have data-driven technology that is special to convention of states on the website, and that includes, but not limited to, the Citizen Builder and the district dashboard. There's lots of tools that are really, really cutting edge to help people get their work done.
Yeah, you've heard us mention tonight a number of times our national website, conventionofstates.com. Well, what Chris is referring to now is what's behind on the back end of that website, which you need specific training to access. But behind that is what you refer to it as a database program.
I'd call it data driven, just because it's we host all the users and leaders in one place, so we know how to communicate with everyone and how to communicate quickly. Right,
and that's of course very important, obviously, to anyone in a leadership role in our organization. And I want to make a point here that we've worked very hard in the state of Indiana to develop this training program. Now, not every state has got to this point yet. We've been very fortunate here in Indiana to have good qualified people in leadership roles where we have been able to develop our own training program. It doesn't encompass everything. It just kind of gives you the basics to get you started in your particular position within our organization, because there is a wealth of other information available to you in Convention of States. So we like to do this to get people grounded and get them started on their way in their particular job. So anything? What else? I know you had mentioned about your collective goal. You want to wrap it up with that?
Sure. Yeah. I got to tell you too, Dale, I'm really excited. This is talk about things changing quickly. This is the first time I've seen your spreadsheet, or not your spreadsheet, your presentation that you gave.
Oh, really?
So I didn't realize that we had 30,000 supporters and 2,500, volunteers. And yeah, it's like, wow. So I learned several things tonight. So thank you for
that. I think that's information we need to be putting out there, and we should be very proud of that. Just a couple years ago, we were only at about 14,000 supporters in the state. So now in a little over 2 years, we've grown to 30,000 supporters in the state of Indiana. So we should be very proud of that. So I'm glad
that's really great. And if you're new to this, and I might plug the progress map that you can find on the website. I think you have to search for. I think it's on the blog page. There's a button actually that you have to click to see it. But that being said, it's very encouraging to see how many states not only have already passed the resolution, but are they're knocking at the door with their respective legislatures. So it's really great.
Right.
So anyway, my collective, the goal in training for all of us, that's why I said collective, is to just provide all the knowledge and resources and tools that are currently available at any given time to any citizens that want to help see Convention of States succeed.
Okay. All right, Chris. Well, Chris, we thank you for coming on this evening.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, everyone, for watching. So appreciate any support that you have to give us.
We're very fortunate in this state to have actually 3 people that are in the SIA role in our state. And of course, Chris is the newest one. How long, Chris? You've only been with us how many months?
Active in like training and actually doing constructive work, probably about six months or so,
That's
maybe 9. So
okay.
yeah.
And we are very, very fortunate to have someone like Chris and the other two SIAs that we have on board. So we're very happy to have Chris with us, and very good to have you with us, Chris. So thanks for being on tonight.
You bet. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to send Chris back to the lobby here if I can get, there he goes. Okay. All right. Well, folks, I want to wrap things up here. Our next broadcast will be 1 week from tonight, which will be March 25th. And now, right now, I have planned for that night. Actually, I have planned for the next 2 broadcasts that we're going to get into some topics in the second segment. The first segment, we will continue with the basics of convention of states. And then the second segment for the next 2 broadcasts, and that could change, but the next 2 broadcasts, I've got topics lined up. And our next broadcast, we're going to talk about just what is a convention of states. And we'll get into that topic. And then the following Monday, my plan is to discuss just what is Article 5. And we'll get into how Article 5 was, how it came about, a little bit of the history of how Article 5 came about, and we'll get into more detail of Article 5. So I'm just going to see here. I wanted to look at some of the comments that we got this from. Here is, if I can bring it up here. This is Chris. This is one of another SIA. One of our other SIAs, Jerry Rowe, is saying hello all from Indiana. So glad to have Jerry on this evening. And I want to also mention this gentleman. This gentleman is from Missouri and has been attending our broadcasts on a regular basis. So James, welcome aboard. Thank you for being with us again this evening. That's really glad to have you with us. All right. Okay. I want to wrap things up this evening with my favorite quote. You've heard me say this before. Let me get James off of here. He just there he goes. Okay. All right. My favorite quote in Convention of States is by our president, Mark Meckler, where he says, we are faced in this country with a fundamental question. And the question is not what should we do? The question is who will decide? And I have always liked that quote. And I really think that is, in fact, where we are in this country. And if you're part of Convention of States, what you're saying is we decide, we will decide, not someone up in Washington, D.C. We will decide. So that's it for tonight, folks. Thank you for attending and viewing. Look for us next Monday night, the 25th, 7 p.m. And look forward to seeing you then. Have a good evening. Good night.